What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Wine Nerd Kitchen. Today I am making a Ukrainian soup. Now you may be thinking, why in the world are you making a soup if you live in Texas and it's 100 degrees outside? In fact, right now it's 99 degrees outside, but that's okay. My mom's been asking me to make this recipe for a while now and do a video on it. I asked her to be on it, but she refused to, so I'm gonna make it without her. Hopefully she can make this with me again and we can do it together. But today we're gonna make, it's a Ukrainian soup my grandmother used to make, Grandma Solivio, and it's called Borscht. It's basically it's got all kinds of ingredients in it, but it's a really good soup. It's got really good meat in it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I got a large pot here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on to medium high. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take and get my oil in there. The recipe calls for 4 tablespoons full of oil. So I'm gonna get that in there, get it going. And then 4 tablespoons of butter. So I'm just gonna dump that butter in there and let it melt. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cube our meat. Now I've chosen a top round roast that's grass-fed, that's really marbleized. You can use a tri-tip. The recipe calls for a chuck roast, but just make sure it's marbleized. You want a little bit of fat in there. You don't want tons of fat, but you want a little bit of fat to give it some really good flavor. So I chose a prime grass-fed beef, and I'm gonna pull this baby out just like this. Set that there, and I'm gonna cut this up into small cubes that we can put in our pot once our butter melts. All right, so I'm just gonna cut this beef into cubes by cutting it this way first. And it just looks, I mean, look at that meat, that looks delicious. I'm gonna cut it up into smaller cubes. And there's no rule on how big the cubes of meat have to be. I'd say like maybe 1 inch by 1 inch or so, or maybe a little bit smaller. But you're just looking for cubes of beef like that we can put in our soup. There's no science to that, for sure. But you just wanna have it in cubes so it's easy to cook. All right, I'm finishing up cutting up my cubed meat, and I'm noticing my butter hasn't melted yet, and I just figured out that I didn't hit start. That would help if I actually turned it on, but that's okay. So now I've got my meat cubed up, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna wash my hands here, and I'm gonna salt and pepper this meat to give it just a little bit of salt and pepper on it before I stick it in my pot once my butter melts. The butter melts a whole lot faster when it's turned on, I'll give it that. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some salt and pepper to my meat. Give it some good flavor here. I did let my meat sit out to room temperature. I think that does make a huge difference when cooking anything, especially steaks. But I always let my meat get to room temperature before I cut it up. We got salt and pepper on the meat there. And we're just waiting for our butter to melt inside of our pot. Just like that. All right, I've got my butter melted inside the pot. You can probably hear it crackling. So now I'm gonna add in my meat to it. Just like that. And stir it around. All right, now that I've got my meat added in, I'm gonna increase the heat to high. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna let it cook for about 5 to 7 minutes until it's brown on the outside of each cube. It takes about 5 to 7 minutes. Depending on your cooktop, it may take a little bit longer. But I'm gonna let each side get brown. I'm gonna stir it up every couple minutes and just make sure that meat gets nice and browned on each side. As you can see, the meat is almost finished cooking. It's got a minute or 2 left. It's getting really brown on each side, and that's all you're looking for, is it to brown on all sides of the beef. All right, now that my beef is completely brown on all sides, I'm gonna add in my onions and my carrots. So the recipe calls for 3 cups petite carrots that are diced. So I have them right here. I'm gonna add those into my mix just like that. And then it asks for 1 large onion chopped. So I'm gonna add that into my mix right there, just like that. And then I'm going to stir that in. I'm gonna reduce my heat down to medium, and I'm gonna cook that for about 5 to 7 minutes as well, until the carrots are nice and soft. All right, so our meat and our onions and our carrots are cooking for our borscht. They're getting soft right now. I've cooked them for about 5 minutes or so. You may need to cook them a little longer depending on how your carrots are, but just as soon as they start to soften up a little bit, you're good to go. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna add in the rest of my ingredients. So I've got the chopped onions and carrots in there. I already reduced it to medium heat. I'll let those cook for 5 to 7 minutes. Now I'm gonna add my garlic. I'm gonna add in 3 tablespoons of chopped garlic. Add that into my mixture, my soup, just like that. Just beautiful. I'm gonna add some salt and pepper. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. You can always add more to taste as you want to into your mixture. I'm gonna add 3 shakes of cumin. 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna add 3 shakes of dill. 1, 2, 3. Just like that. I'm gonna add 1 spoonful of sugar. Now I'm gonna add my organic beef broth. I chose the HEB brand. You can choose any brand you want. But the recipe calls for 3 32-ounce bottles of beef broth. So I'm gonna add that in there. Now I'm gonna add in 5 cups of water. Just like that. I'm gonna add in my tomato chunks. So I've got 4 russet potatoes chopped into cubes. I'm gonna add those in there, just like that. Oops, I left a couple out. A little splash here and there is not gonna hurt anybody. I'm gonna add 1 can of tomato sauce and 1 can of petite diced peeled tomatoes. Can of tomato sauce. I prefer Hunt's, but you can use any brand you want. Just like that. I have 1 large beet sliced that I'm adding in. I've got everything in there except for my cabbage and my parsley. I'm going to add in 3/4 of a head of green cabbage that's sliced and chopped. I'm going to add that into my mix, just like that. And then 4 tablespoons of chopped parsley. And now my borscht is complete. I'm going to crank the heat up to high until it gets to a rolling boil. So I've got all my ingredients in my borscht. I'm going to crank it up to high until it gets to a rolling boil. Once it gets to a rolling boil, I'm going to reduce the heat to low. I'm going to cover it. I'm going to sit for about an hour, about 60 minutes, and just let it sit there and don't peek. And it's going to be amazing soup. All right, so my borscht has been cooking for about an hour now. Take the lid off. It smells so good and looks amazing. So here's what the borscht looks like when it's done cooking. It's on low. It's been on low for about an hour now. And it just looks absolutely amazing. All right, so our borscht is done. Last thing I need to do is scoop it up. So what I'm gonna do is get a ladle in here, and I'm gonna take out a good portion of the meat, potatoes. Looks so good. Carrots, onions. I like to get a lot of broth on mine, just like that. And of course, with any Russian dish, we have to add our sour cream. A little bit of sour cream to it, just like that. And then a pinch of parsley. And that's it. Now we have our borscht done. Look at how good that borscht looks. You can always add more salt if you need to. This had plenty of salt in it. All right, the last thing we have to do is taste it. A nice thick borscht with meat and vegetables. So good. Can't wait to try it. Absolutely delicious. Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to be notified of any videos I do. Thanks for joining the channel. I appreciate you. Y'all have a good day. Do svidaniya.